Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel YNR Daily Spoiler. Phyllis become a CEO and Jack is fired.
Phyllis is the new CEO of Jabot. Jack speaks 3 words right before he gets fired. The war of business. Phyllis begins her climb in private. In addition to social capital, she uses connections such as sincere favors, prior generosity, and the willingness of a small number of insiders to bet on her zeal. The following individuals were involved in the coup planning. A disgruntled majority investor who wants cost control and hates family feuds that hurt stock. A tech-savvy director who lusts for Phyllis's talent for branding and offers operational expertise. A third-party activist group offered to help with proxy solicitations in exchange for board seats. Rumors of Jack's recent volatility are presented as a risk during a private meeting where Phyllis is introduced as a temporary CEO candidate. They refer to a caretaker who can hold the fort during a strategic pivot, but in reality, it's a beheading. Phyllis nods with practiced modesty. She reminds them of a successful product relaunch she once sponsored, a recent PR victory she organized for a family cause, and her capacity to unite disparate groups. The place feels warm to her, like metal to magnets. Meanwhile, Jack is busy. He knows it. A few weeks earlier, he had rejected a brief intelligence report that one activist investor had increased their stake. Jabot put it up for change because he hasn't done well. But the warning signs are growing. A surrogate effort calling for independent oversight, a whisper campaign criticizing his hands-on family management style, and a leaked letter planned. A leak? We'll see later, revealing procurement issues. Jack thinks he can manage it. He doesn't see how easily a board can break or how Phyllis, who likes to fill the void left by Jack by moving like water, is a political genius. The clinical, close, and cold proxy fight. Phyllis's gang starts the proxy competition. The storyline switches to corporate warfare strategies, such as solicitations, proxy cards, and shareholder calls, along with a crafty counter-narrative from Jack's side about steady hands and family heritage. Each episode finds a balance between business protocol and human drama. Scenes of importance. A mix of disinterested institutional investors and small stockholders who see opportunity fill the room as Phyllis, accompanied by the tech director and the activist partner, presents a well-designed slideshow that promises digital transformation and a tale of calm, modern governance. I know how to stop the leaks that scare investors and how to sell desire. Phyllis makes a strong but harsh argument. Jabot must be a brand for the next generation. Jack's press conference in response. Defiant and injured, Jack sits behind the podium at Jabot's flagship and promises to continue. He reminded investors of Jabot's heritage by using a simple slogan, like family is steadiness. He comes across as stubborn rather than flexible in interviews. Clips of his resistance are used against him in the proxy materials. Can he adapt? The newsreader's question is not rhetorical. When the final proxy crosses the table, the margin is narrow but significant. It is enough to grant Phyllis plurality and force a board reorganization. The proxy battle is fierce, with small-scale stockholders waiting to see which side will reward their allegiance, as votes are counted in quiet chambers. One of Phyllis's team's main advantages is that they have a small but outspoken group of family friends who choose dividends over controversy. And they also hire a corporate governance consultant to sway hesitant investors. Jack's 3 words, the time the town remembers. The coup is carried out at a hastily scheduled emergency board meeting. It's an electric chamber. Jack enters with the cold composure of a man who has been giving orders in this chamber for decades. Legal counsel reads the motion, which calls for an immediate vote on executive leadership realignment. Phyllis sits across from him, composed in a fitted suit that reads New Era. Old partnerships moan. After proxies are enforced and votes are called, a company secretary announces the total. It's a close vote, and the newly formed committees, not the board as a whole, decide the results when the count is made public. Jack's face is pale, but he knows the numbers and the scripts, and he knows about supply-side shifts. It's a raw, scripted moment, with cameras rolling around the hallways because the press has been tipped, and Jack is given the floor as a last courtesy before being dragged out of the boardroom and before legal takes away his executive credentials. After he stands up and looks at Phyllis, there is a single suspended breath of silence before Jack utters the 3 words that will echo. Do what's right. The headline writers love the statement, which almost immediately becomes a soundbite once Phyllis gets it on camera. For the story, Jack's valediction is both a moral challenge and a gesture of surrender. The 3 words are those: easy, death, unclear. Some hear an appeal to uphold dignity and safeguard the business, while others receive a harsh directive. Take whatever necessary steps to modernize, reduce losses, and prioritize your business before your family. Photographers silently follow Jack as he is escorted by security to a private exit, and the chair promptly announces that the motion has been approved, relieving him of his CEO duties and bestowing upon him the symbolic title of Founding Chairman Emeritus, a ceremonial position devoid of executive authority, with immediate effect. Phyllis gets the helm, silently and silently. The drama and PR savvy of Phyllis's first days as CEO are staged. The company makes a well-crafted statement. Phyllis will oversee a digital rollout, a strategy review, and a cultural audit. Investors embrace the idea of transparent governance, and the stock initially rises. However, the old blood in Jabot retaliates. Long-standing merchants are scrutinized, assistants are redistributed, and a plan for austerity is quietly initiated. The public views the CEO as decisive, innovative, and most importantly, unafraid to make difficult decisions. The private view portrays a woman plagued by past betrayals and determined not to be undermined. She strategically appoints a compliance officer to clean house, a marketing vice president who wants to switch to direct-to-consumer, and a new CFO who tightens procurement. Phyllis prefers a combination of brutal efficiency and theatrics, as evidenced by scenes showing her meeting with Desi. Important steps. In order to support stricter procurement regulations and force resignations that alienate Jack supporters, Phyllis uses a vendor audit to uncover subpar contracts and possible payments that may have been linked to board members for years. A marketing overhaul known as Jabot Reimagined, which swaps out legacy lines for a higher margin, tech-savvy line that appeals to millennials. A public relations campaign that presents Phyllis as a steward of custom who will modernize without sacrificing it. Editors like the story because it challenges the villain versus heroine dichotomy, and shareholders like it because it talks about growth. Phyllis's team handles optics. The company hosts an emotive but apolitical brand event where she highlights reinvention, community, and roots. She is both a disruptor and a protector, which makes the story powerful. The counterattack, Jack's camp's retaliation. Jack is still in control. He launches a personal, legal, and strategic counterattack while hiding among friends, family, and reporters who remember him favorably. Legal tricks. Jack's lawyers go through the proxy process and find minor procedural mistakes, like filings that are a day late or proxy notices with slightly different wording, which is enough to start a technical challenge. The firm asks for an injunction to delay some of Phyllis's major judgments while they are being reviewed. A charm offensive. Jack hosts private dinners, plays the legacy card in a way that Phyllis cannot, and strengthens loyalty among the old guard by bringing up his father's name, Abbott's founding principles, and the human aspect of the business that Phyllis's analytics cannot identify. And expose. A seasoned reporter who owes Jack favors presents an investigative piece that questions Phyllis's sudden rise to prominence. The article questions who paid for the proxy solicitation, raises questions about the consultant who pulled the strings, and mentions activist funding with short-term goals. The essay only complicates the notion that Phyllis is a perfect savior. It does not exalt Jack. The legal pause slows but does not stop Phyllis's launch, and the board, split and uneasy, seeks political cover by making disclosures, promising independent audits, and declaring that she has no interest in personal grudges. The boardroom war, cold bureaucracy, and hot feelings. Phyllis's leadership brings about both practical and deeply personal personnel changes. And it is this cultural purging within Jabot that transforms the arc from a simple takeover into a multi-season plot. Although the organization feels like a family going through a divorce, the emotional toll is still felt despite the modern optics. Phyllis takes advantage of the opportunities to attract female executives, new creative talent, and boutique agency connections. Longtime executives who were Jack supporters are fired, pushing out their old friends. Staff parties are disrupted. Their departures are turbulent and emotional, and teams reorganize for months. The emeritus position backfires. Jack's new title as founding chairman emeritus becomes a plot point. He can no longer hire people or sign checks, but he still has access to old friends and benefactors. His children send him angry gifts. He feels publicly humiliated and enraged. The public observer can see both hubris and heartbreak. In addition to strategically removing board members who disagree with her, Phyllis uses the compliance revelations to justify a cultural reset. The vendor audits reveal uncomfortable relationships, including a previous contract that favored a politically connected agency due to personal ties, and a director's son working as a sub-vendor on questionable terms. Relationships suffer, alliances shift, and some directors choose to leave rather than support the purge, depending on whether they value integrity or convenience. The board becomes a battlefield for private conversations, proxies, and trustees. Personal costs and public salvation. Scenes like Jack at home, trying to keep up family life, Phyllis in the executive suite waking up at odd hours and rereading proxy cards like prayer notes, Jack's kids dealing with public humiliation, and Phyllis's friends worrying that she has become what she once opposed are just a few examples of the human cost of power. But as Phyllis's strategic vision begins to pay off, the stock levels off, direct-to-consumer margins look good, the new product line sells out in its first carefully planned drop, and the board's early investors welcome the early indications of stabilization. When Phyllis is invited to speak at a major business conference and gives a keynote address on legacy and reinvention, viewers see a woman who can lead and pitch, but more importantly, she is not ashamed to use her social instincts as a. Jack, on the other hand, moves his counter-strategies to the moral. He starts an internal campaign about legacy, company spirit, and the value of family stewardship. His comments attract employees who feel loyal to him, and he is captivating in a way that statistics cannot match. A few long-serving employees threaten to go on strike in support of the old guard, and the corporation's HR department trembles. Phyllis is able to avoid a complete walkout by negotiating retention agreements, but at the cost of more debt and a decline in goodwill. The legal and public results, a mirror. After months of legal battles, proxy battles, and board instability, a corporate tribunal examines the proxy contest, the validity of the votes, and the suitability of the takeover. It finds a few minor procedural errors, but not enough to overturn the board's decision, so it only issues partial rulings. The prohibitions are lifted, and Phyllis will be confirmed as CEO by a final vote at the next general meeting. Both men, as well as the woman who replaced him, are rewriting their histories in front of the community. Though, with Jack displaying stoicism in public, but privately harboring resentment over the tribunal's findings, and Phyllis agreeing that required disclosures and a newly empowered shareholders committee are also governance reforms mandated by the tribunal. Aftermath and the new power map. Phyllis's ascent changes Genoa City, and Jabot becomes a more modern brand, but it also becomes the center of family strife. Phyllis consolidates authority by successfully launching the product line and quietly enticing loyal directors with promises of profit sharing and performance bonuses. Recasting himself as an elder statesman and benefactor, Jack creates a charitable skincare fund and loses his executive grip, although he still has some influence over donors and the community. The Abbott family experiences new divisions as new romantic relationships and resentments emerge, with some siblings supporting Phyllis's modernization while others follow Jack's traditional ways. After becoming scattered and underappreciated, Phyllis's enemies start to plot. While Jack learns about the cost of rigidity and the frailty of legacy, Phyllis learns about the loneliness of the executive suite and the price of power. The corporate battle has changed and continues to this day, with new competitors in the wings. Future actions. Numerous long-term opportunities are created by this coup. The plot for revenge. A disgruntled former director teams up with an outside competitor to attempt a hostile takeover using offshore proxies, forcing Jack to forge an unexpected alliance as the plot tests Phyllis's coalition once more. The Moral Reconciliation is a story about layoffs, business ethics, and the real lives behind restructuring. A whistleblower must deal with the fallout after exposing the horrific human cost of Phyllis's early cuts. The relationship between power and intimacy is tested by Phyllis's potential romantic interest, who may be a morally upright but reserved investor. Jack also considers romance, weighing the pros and cons of a new beginning against resentment. Succession in the family. Jack's children begin to compete for authority in very modern ways, such as through trust agreements, wills, and sibling rivalry. Backlash versus brand rebirth. Jabot's new DTC line suffers a PR disaster as a result of a supplier dispute that tests Phyllis's leadership and the company's new transparency policy. Why this arc works. Emotion plus mechanics. It blends cold corporate mechanics, proxy wars, audits, and tribunals, with the endearing aspects of soap operas, family betrayal, guilt, and redemption, for maximum drama. Role reversal. Phyllis's promotion defies expectations and gives an actress a dramatic opportunity to transform from social queenpin to CEO of a business. Moral ambiguity. No one is completely heroic. Jack's dedication is both honorable and unwavering. Phyllis's ambition is both necessary and cruel. Long-term payoff. The storyline establishes the framework for years of storytelling, which will include power struggles, romantic tales, debates about government, and moral analysis. Jack's 3 words are reprise. The story ends with a brief, poignant reprise. After months of trials and reforms, Jack formally hands Phyllis the CEO pin in a smaller, more intimate event in the now quieter boardroom, with fewer cameras and a different attitude from a family. This time, the words "do what's right" come out as benediction rather than resignation as he looks at Phyllis, at the intersection of power and history between them, and Phyllis agrees as a charge rather than a concession. Genoa City will debate for seasons whether those 3 words were a challenge, an order, or a plea, and the way each character handles that dilemma is both entertaining and the basis for the following season.